Fantastic.
Okay.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? And welcome to a very special FTN fantasy live stream, a fantasy baseball draft extravaganza. We're going to take you to about 15, 20 rounds of this NFBC Online Championship. It is the Beat Lucas Biery League. Here we are with you today. So we're going to run through this draft as Lucas drafts. Before we get to the man of the hour or the next couple hours, first, a guest, a fellow co-host, and color analyst with us today, the reigning auction champion of the NFBC. I know you hate it when I mention it, but it is the truth. Mike Mager. What's going on, Mike?
How's it going, Vlad? We got it easy today, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah, we just sit here and just analyze everything. This will be fun. Lucas, what's up, man? How you feeling? Are you pumped up? Do you have any pregame activities?
Ready to draft, excited. Just feels like the live events will be here soon, and fired up to be on with you guys. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. So tell us where are you drafting from today? And then if you don't mind sharing, what did you do with your KDS? KDS is, of course, Kentucky Derby style draft system where you can set your preferred draft order where you want to pick in the first round in this snake draft. But where did you land and what did you want?
Yeah, so as far as my KDS goes, I got my fourth favorite choice. I'm picking from the 9 hole, which was somewhat of a targeted area. I had the 2 and the 3 pick to be able to get one of those top 3 players and to be able to have control over some of the teams on the wheel. Because as team 1, you're kind of at the whim of everyone else, and they can kind of pin you down a little bit there. But as far as I had 8, 9, 10, and 11 as some of my top options to get 2 of the top 20 players, or top 16 in the OC. So yeah.
Yep.
Mike, you are more of a 15-team player. That is just your preference. A lot of people, the 12 is a completely different animal, shallower player pool. Drafting 360 total players as opposed to 450 in a 15-teamer. And I mean, it's just a lot of work. And, when somebody's really kind of concentrating on 15s, it really is a big move to kind of switch over into 12-team mode. But you did have to draft a 12-teamer because you're part of the CLQ. So how did that feel, pivoting to a 12?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, you leave the draft feeling great about your team compared to the 15 team league. So that was definitely fun. But yeah, there's definitely some differences. I mean, I think in 12 teamers, I try to prioritize catchers a little more, relievers a little less, just because there's fewer teams fighting for them. And thanks to some great advice from you talking about it, towards the end of the draft, I really tried to go more upside. So, just because the replacement value is so much easier, better in Fab. So you don't have to draft as conservatively as I tend to do sometimes in 15-teamers.
Lucas, do you have a different approach? We'll get to this draft here in a second. Lucas does pick 9. Do you have a different approach with 12-teamers as opposed to 15-teamers? Are you kind of playing it more like a DFS tournament where you're shooting for upside because you've got 5,000 plus people that are in this shooting for the overall prize? Or are you just trying to win your league?
Probably more along the win your league side. I know I've heard some people say you go a little bit more high variance in the 12 teams versus the 15s. And I've heard both sides. I've heard a lot of people say to go for the upside, but at the end of the day, you have 5 outfield spots, 6 infield spots, 2 catchers. So at a certain point, I'm willing to go a little bit more riskier. And if a certain risky guy falls that I like a Jazz Chisholm, maybe into that early 3rd, I'd be okay with it. More than in the middle of the 2nd and a 15, it's tougher. But kind of a balance where not as safe as the 15, but I'm not going too crazy.
So this is it's on the NFBC. They're 12-team leagues. The payouts are for first and for second place. A big giant chunk goes to the overall component. So all the teams within the league play for the overall prizes, and the top overall prize this year is $150,000. $350 is the entry for this contest. We're going to be doing a few of these beat leagues here at FTN. Lucas is coming up on the pick, and we're going to be referring to the NFBC OC ADP, average draft position, from basically the month of March. So the last 6 days of drafts, and there have been 10 of those drafts going on. So, looking at the board so far, it looks, kind of vanilla, like what you essentially expect in a lot of these. I'm sure they'll go haywire at some point, but the only real difference here, Ellie De La Cruz third, where Aaron Judge usually goes third. That's kind of the flip there. And then Soto has an ADP of around 8, so him going there is 6. Everybody kind of in the 5 to 12 range or 5 to 10 range ADP, whether it's a 12-teamer or a 15-teamer, are, I think, a lot of people consider them interchangeable. Everyone has their preference. Someone might, like a Soto over a Carroll or a Tucker, but these guys, as far as value, like FTN fantasy value, the VDP values are all very close. So it's really a matter of who can stay healthy. You took Fernando Tatis Jr., so you're feeling about him, feeling good about him. No bad vibes in San Diego this year, right?
No bad vibes, especially when you get Pivetta on such a big discount. So, yeah, I just felt like, as far as his true talent, I feel like he's a top 3, top 5 guy. Yes, there is some injury concern, but you're getting him a bit later than those top 5 players.
I see Gunnar Henderson went 10th. There's some injury concern whether he's going to be available for the start of the season, but I was curious how far he might fall, and the answer is not too far.
Yeah, and you got this one. This will be interesting. So main event season, NFBC main events, they kick off earlier than usual. They'll start, I believe this weekend will be the first one. Our colleague Nelson Souza does a lot of high stakes stuff, specifically in football, but is also pretty good in baseball. He's doing a main event on Tuesday. And so, we'll be interested these next, few days, what the news is going to be on Gunnar and what the discount, if any, will be on him. Like, will he fall into the teens? Will he fall into the 20s if we know that he's going to be starting the season on the IL? Our very own Jason Anthony, co-host of the FTN Fantasy Baseball podcast, he talked about it this time last year. I think it was the 1 or 2 days where there was a Gunnar Henderson injury concern. At a time when Gunnar's ADP was 35, I think Jason got him at like 45 or 50 overall. So heck of a pick. He ended up being 8th overall last season in fantasy value. So kind of sometimes you get the right timing of some of these players and you end up getting a good discount there. Is this how you mapped it out? You got Fernando Tatis and Mookie Betts. Draft is moving fast. Happy with the start?
Yeah, pretty happy. If Soto would have fell to me, I feel better with Betts having the dual eligibility and more speed than Soto provides. So, I was ecstatic that Betts fell there.
Mike, there's been, even today, getting messages about people wondering what the concern is with Mookie Betts overall, because there have been a lot of industry analysts. There have been a lot of talk where at the end of that first round, a lot of folks are preferring to go in a different direction, like maybe worrying about his age or his health or reduced barrel rate last year. Of course, got hit in the wrist and all. But do you have any concerns with Mookie? Is he somebody you're targeting, or are you just, letting him pass by?
I would not say he's a strong target for me, but I have drafted him several times late in the first round. He's getting a little older, but he's not old. I mean, maybe the stolen bases declined a little bit, but I think you're still getting a premium elite bat who's going to be, hitting a top or, second in maybe the best lineup in baseball, good park, could have amazing counting stats, strong average, and he covers outfield and shortstop. He's, one of the few early players where you can get the additional positional flexibility. So, I think he's a great pick where he's going.
All right, here we go. Going fast here, going through the end of second round. Nothing too crazy. The one thing to note, to mention in these 12-team online championships, the pitching is pushed down a little bit. So typically you do not see a lot of the first, second tier starting pitchers. going in the first, second round in the way that you might see in main events coming up. The main event, of course, a 15-team league, in $1,800 entry, I believe, this year, and also a massive prize, even bigger than the OC. But in a week's time, when those main events hit, you will see guys like Zach Wheeler, where here he's going, middle second round. You might see him go at the end of the first, or maybe at the 1-2 turn. Skubal and Skeens might be going earlier than some of these Soto, Tucker, Carroll types. And then in that type of scenario, all the good hitters get pushed down. I remember a time when Yordan Alvarez, because all the pitching got pushed up in a live main event, went in the third round. So they're always, you pull one lever, the other one, I don't know. I don't know that phraseology. Mike, come save me. Mute.
Oops. Sorry. Sure. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, come main event time, all the pitching will be pushed up. It happens every year. You're not going to see Skeens and Skubal going at 11, 12. They're going to be probably both in the first half of the first round. And I agree with you. I think Wheeler is very likely to be around the 1-2 turn or even late first. Would not shock me to see Garrett Crochet drafted there as well.
All right, we got to stop here. So I don't know. Only Lucas is in that league draft. I have a public draft board, so looks like maybe someone made a misclick or a mispick.
Yes, someone clicked Freeman and wanted Jackson Merrill instead, so they resolved that though.
They must not have seen that he's hit his 4th home run in the last hour. So we've been talking a lot about Freddie Freeman, and I mean, almost need we were talking about this, Lucas, on the pod the other day. Like, you almost have to have sort of a stance on him. What is it about the Dodgers? Like, people wanted to fade Mookie, fade Freeman, and then, they're scoring 10, 15 runs a game. It's just like, is it like an anti-Dodger bias? Like, people just hate the Dodgers? I mean, I get it.
What do you think, Mike?
I don't think it's I think maybe Freeman, it's more just the injury news that came out recently with his ankle. The possibility of him getting rest days, I think sitting a day game after a night game, not something you want to hear, especially when, one of his strengths has been his fantastic durability. But, as my Yankees discovered in the World Series, the man can still hit, and he's continuing it this spring training. So I guess, pass him at your own risk.
All right, so here we go. We are turning the corner at the end of the second round. This is a snake draft. This is a 30-rounder, 12-teamer. We will probably take you to about 18, 20 rounds here and let everyone in this room finish the draft off by themselves. We have another one of these going on. It'll be a late night, Friday night. If you are not going out or doing date night or something, and you prefer to spend your March weekend evenings watching fantasy baseball drafts, which is probably what I would prefer to do, you can join us tomorrow night, Friday night, with Jason Anthony, the Beat Jason Anthony Beat Booms League. Nelson Souza will be there with us as well to commentate. And then on Sunday, around 6 p.m. Eastern, it'll be a league to beat me. And then we will have our resident bullpen guy, Dan Thompson, on, and then Jason, and then maybe Nelson as well popping in there. So lots of fun here. There's a pitcher on the turn, Ohtani, Trey Turner, Logan Gilbert. Mike, let me ask you, you're in that spot. You start off strong with Ohtani, a little bit of everything. Then you add some more speed, batting average, that'll help a little bit. Is that the right play for you as well? Do you take your first pitcher there, knowing you're not going to get a pick for another 24?
Yeah, I think so. I think Gilbert is in one of the top 5 or 6 starting pitchers available, and I think there's a real drop off by the time it would get back to team 1 at the 4 or 5 turn. So yeah, I would probably do that.
I mean, this is a guy that I admittedly was not into at the price, and he was a very, I think, reasonable price, 5th, 6th rounder. And I mean, he's just incredible. Like 208 innings last season, 190 the year before, 185 the previous season. Every year just keeps getting better and better. Most importantly, the strikeout rate increase 24 to 27%. The walk rate's been hovering under 5% all this time for the last couple of years, and he's just a beast. And even like His swinging strike rate last year, almost 15%. So he's legit. If only Seattle could get some offense to help him out, maybe get him some wins.
Yeah, no, that's definitely an area of need for that team, and I don't know what they're doing, not getting any big bats this offseason. But yeah, no, Gilbert's a great pitcher. Definitely one of the premier whip guys as well, and I think that's sometimes overlooked.
Let me ask you both: over under whip of 1.00 for Gilbert this year. You can just upper over under.
I'd say over only because it's so tough to predict an under for such a low 1.0. But I'd feel confident saying he's going to be in the top 10 of starting pitchers for whip.
All right. Lucas, you're coming up here. You're up. What do you walk us through this pick right here and your thinking?
Well, with Betts and Tatis, I feel like I have most everything covered except the speed isn't super advanced as far as my stolen base output. That being said, I had a handful of hitters I was hoping to fall to me, and one of them did make it. So I'm going to go ahead and select Ketel Marte.
Fantastic. Ketel Marte, the guy that is the top second baseman on the board. A guy who, several years ago just cranked a whole bunch of home runs. Then had an off season. I think it was the year after, a couple of years after COVID. And then just since then, he's just been on an absolute tear. Not sure if he's going to hit 30 home runs again. It doesn't matter because he kind of just produces in that lineup. If you've got a healthy Corbin Carroll, you got Josh Naylor there. This is a Diamondbacks team that scored the most runs in Major League Baseball. That'll be hard to repeat.
Wow.
But Ketel Marte's the straw that stirs that kettle, I guess. Sorry, dad joke.
Making Jeff Erickson proud on that one. So
gives Lucas an advantage over every other team in terms of second base, though, because I think he's clearly the top, and there's a drop off after him.
Yeah, and this is 5x5 roto. The balance is very important. One of the things we strive for, and some people do, and our guy Dan Thompson wrote an article about this, is a percentile category target. So looking to shoot for 80 to 90% of what the what your starting lineup, or I'm sorry, looking back at the last year and almost like projecting what like a target is of 80th or 90th percentile that you would need in each of these categories to win your league or to compete in the overall. So I know a lot of people do that. Something that Dan wrote about is we have our targets for the OC. I think it's something like 1,440 strikeouts total for your pitchers. It's like 300-ish home runs, 200-ish stolen bases, 1,100, something around there in the runs and RBI. And so those are sort of targets that we work with as we go. Do you use category targets, Lucas, at all?
I do. Yeah, I have a tracker that I have that I don't use it religiously per se or whatever, but I just try to make sure I'm not going too far off the path, I guess.
All right, tell us what you're going to do here.
There's a few bats that I still really like, but a lot of them have been winced a little bit when O'Neal Cruz went off the board because I was open for him. Corey Seager was another name that I would have liked just to fluff up my batting average and then be able to use Mookie Betts in either the middle infield or the outfield. So that would have been nice. So yeah, we'll see what drops here one away.
Sounds good. All right. Yeah, I mean, just so many ways to approach these drafts, and the ADP, like honestly, from draft to draft, this NFBC RotoWire OC is just, it's crazy. And also depending on the time of day, like sometimes there are these midnight madness drafts where ADP isn't even looked at all. It's just kind of players being scooped up all over the board, and it gets pretty crazy. But one thing is usually for certain is you'll always see a lot of hitters, more so in the 12s, in these first few rounds. The pitching will get pushed down, and you'll always have somebody with an extreme approach. There, beautiful pick there with Michael Harris. Let's stop on that right there. Let's talk about your blend and what you're looking for at this point and what your strategy might be.
Yeah, so with this year and this OC, I'm really trying to hammer the offense and get a big advantage on that. There are certain positions that I think are a bit weak that I think in a 15-team league you can get away with pretty well. Like there's certain third baseman later on and certainly second baseman where I feel good that I can live with them in a 15 and use them well. But in a 12-teamer, my bar has gone up more. And the pitching pool has gotten more depth. There's been less injuries this spring training than I expected. So I feel like I can wait even more on pitching, especially in a 12.
Mm-hmm. All right, Chris Sale off the board as we turn through the fourth round. This feels like a faster draft than usual. Mike, you did your OC as a slow draft.
I did.
Okay.
I because I tend to concentrate more on 15 teamers. There's a little more. I thought I would benefit from having a little more time between my picks, just to be able to think about it and get in the mind of a 12-team draft. And I don't know why I did this, but I wound up doing my CLQ draft champions draft at the same time as my CLQ OC draft. So I was kind of going back and forth between 12 and 15 team drafts in my head. So
could either of you guys do what Team 7 is doing? How does that make you feel looking at that all that green?
I would not be comfortable in a 15-teamer. I think you could still get away with it in a 12-teamer. I honestly, I'm still doing my CLQ DC draft. It's a little slower than I'd prefer. And I did go 4 outfielders in a row there, but that was round 7 through 10.
There's definitely something about, the online championships. I'm sorry, the outfielders. The outfielders there's definitely, you have to draft 5 of them in this format. And there is a huge drop off. I feel like it's less of a drop off in the 12-team format. Like you could still get some solid guys and no problem streaming during the year. But my issue with a build like this, when you're starting so heavy like that, and especially Acuna, you already now have your first stash, and a stash is a player that you can't use right away. It really does shorten up your bench. And if you're adding more stashes, you just aren't going to have a lot of flexibility for your roster early in the season. And in NFBC, you can you start your pitchers for the week on a Monday, but the hitters are edited twice a week. So you can put them in for the first series, Monday through Thursday, and then there's another deadline on Friday when the games start. So a lot of us in the NFBC, we are playing with optimizing our lineups for platoon splits, things like that, right? Like Jock Peterson is going to have 3 lefties coming up in a series on the weekend. He doesn't play against lefties and probably won't in Texas either. That's a guy that you bench. And so, we're always constantly churning and burning to optimize that. But too many stashes definitely limits the flexibility. It's pretty seeing Kyle Tucker, Churio, Acuna, Langford. Listen, it's fantastic. But what it does is now closes you off on any potential other deals at outfield as the draft unfolds.
Yeah, and I just don't think there's as much of a pressure to grab your outfield in a 12-team. I think it's what you were saying, Vlad, in 15-team leagues. If you take too long to fill your outfield, you're going to get stuck with a bunch of platoons, which is not as big a danger here. But if you're going to go outfield early, he's got some good ones.
That's somebody who's in the league. This is Robert. He is, I guess we know who he's drafting from, and I know he's cool with it. Us letting know, because we did chat last night. He is a new FTN subscriber. By the way, everybody should subscribe because our site is awesome. We update stuff constantly every single day, rankings, projections. As soon as things happen, we update it. Our projections were phenomenal last year. Most accurate, industry accurate on a 10 roto category basis. And the team is great. We've got 3 overall NFBC champs on the team, and I'm not one of them. That's Mager and Biery here, and then also Dan Thompson. And we have the FTN Writer of the Year, Baseball Writer of the Year this year, just won the award last week, Adam Young. And so we'll take really good care of you. Spring 15 is the promo code right now for FTNFantasy.com baseball. Get in now before all your drafts start going. But Robert, I guess, wanted Olsen over Cruz, and that would have been either work, right? I mean, what are your expectations for O'Neill Cruz? Because last year was a little disappointing.
Yeah, I know he's a player who's like poised to break out, but he hasn't done it yet. So that's kind of the tough thing with him. But you know, all the tools are there for a great season. I'm not crazy about the park or the lineup, but he's, you know, he certainly has 30-30 upside. And I think he made some improvements last year that make me think his price this year is pretty fair.
When would you look at him in a snake draft, Mike? I'm just curious what maybe overall you'd look at O'Neill Cruz.
I don't know, like third round, fourth. You know, part of it depends on the build up till there. I'm usually kind of focused on average early. I think it's important to remember too that like your pick of Betts, Cruz is also outfield eligible, so he gives you that extra flexibility when you're making your build, which can be really helpful.
Hey, you can draft Mookie Betts and then O'Neill Cruz, and you can just flip flop them every week from shortstop to outfield. So they're both eligible for it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I'll just correct myself real briefly. I forgot I'm thinking like a 15-teamer. It was a little early for Cruz actually in this one, but you know, I definitely understand if you want your guy, go get him.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. Lucas coming up. Pick 9, the Beat Lucas Biery NFBC Online Championship. 30 rounds. We'll take you through about 20 of them here today. I'm Vlad Sedler. I'm with Mike Mager and, of course, Lucas Biery taking you through this draft. We've got another 2 live stream drafts coming up later this weekend. Friday night, the Beat Booms League, Jason Anthony. That's Friday night, 11 p.m. It'll also be live streamed here on the YouTube channel, and then Beat me, Vlad, League at 6 p.m. on Sunday. So if you want to play in these leagues, I think there is availability in both. So go ahead and sign up. Go ahead and sign up for that. All right. Another outfielder here for Team 7. We'll see. Is this someone we know, Lucas? You don't have to say, obviously don't say their name, but do we know this person?
They have a kind of a familiar name. There was a few people in the draft that had a familiar name, but I don't know them personally.
They're coming after you, man. All right, here we go. Pick 9 or pick 5. Pick 57 overall. Time for a pitcher for Lucas, or will he go with another hitter? Talk to us going through your head.
A lot of options. There was a lot of good stuff that came back to me. I guess that's common in the 12-teamers. Just you know, in a DC, you're worried you're not going to be able to fill everything. And in an OC, you just have so many different avenues. You can just go down any pathway you want. It's just a matter of comfortability and ability to navigate that.
All right. Click it up. 15 seconds. Boom. Closer. Go with the closer time. I've done that too before.
You did? Okay.
I have done that before where it is sometimes might feel uncomfortable in a 12-teamer where you're grabbing like an elite closer first before you hit the starting pitchers. But it really just comes down to like a person's comfort level with drafting, with knowing where the pockets of value are, where the tier drop-offs are. And what that means is, like, you know, we didn't talk to Lucas before this. For all we know, you know, he has begun this start because he knows exactly where he wants to take pitching. And perhaps he's going to, you know, take a bunch of pitchers together back to back. But there are obviously some values that you like. Is this build any slight on the early pitchers or anything that's happened before with injured pitchers? Or you just later ranges you feel comfortable with?
Just really trying to have a beefed up offense in a major way. That was the goal with the first 4 bats to begin. As far as the closer there's a bunch of starters that I view in a similar light that are still around. it's flattened out pretty good. It's going to be light for an SP1, but I think that I can work around it.
Yeah, I think that's getting to what Vlad was saying too, because between 57 and 64, there's not a big drop off in starting pitching. But when Lucas made his pick, Hader, Clase, and Devin Williams were already off the board. So if he wanted, one of the top closers, he probably had to make that pick then.
By the way, if you do check the top 500 VDP rankings, some updates that I made this morning, the long-standing RP1 relief pitcher 1 is no longer. So Clase is no longer my RP1, and so just FYI, go check it out. That was Dusty, by the way. Dusty Wagner, also longtime NFBC player, high stakes guy, FPN subscriber. He says his goal is to take Lucas's fade list at SP. Please hop in the chat here. Uncle Ted's here as always. I'm not going to, sorry, Ted, I'm not going to flatter you with your showing everyone the board, your commentary, but do appreciate you being here. But if the board is too small for you, let me know. I can update or make it bigger. Whatever you guys want, we're here for you. All right, what you got here on tap, Lucas?
There was one of my options that just went off the board with Michael King, so that's a bit tough. Again, there's a lot that fell. I'm going to go with a little bit more of a unique player and fill a catcher spot, though.
There we go. Ainer Diaz. What was it? 299 batting average with a 299x batting average. We want to be careful with the expected batting averages sometimes, especially if you talk to the legend Jeff Zimmerman, co-author with Tanner Bell of The Process. He will strike you through the ether, through the portals of social media if you refer to expected batting average or use it too much in your drafts, which is, there's something to that. But either way, Ainer Diaz has been phenomenal. I think he played like 20, 30 games as a DH last year, so got some more plate appearances. And then there's the helium, the Wilson Contreras helium, catcher as a first baseman. Mike, are you in the early catcher market at all this year?
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a real playing time advantage with the top 4 or 5. And I mean, everything depends on the price and who else is there. But I think it's maybe more important in a 12-teamer to get 2 strong catchers if you can. But at some point in the draft, if I miss out on the catchers I really like, I'm also comfortable just waiting on the position.
I'm looking at the board here. Oh, here we go. A little catcher run. Adley Rutschman, by the way, flashing some power in spring. Jordan Westberg apparently back in the lineup. He probably, his name will be coming up here shortly. I did notice Tyler Glasnow went off the board at 61. And his ADP has been about 90 over the last couple weeks. So I don't know if that just person likes him and didn't think he can get him next. But Tyler Glasnow is definitely one of those, helium guys. And helium is just players that as we get closer to NFBC Live main event season, as we get closer to the start of the regular season, these are just players that are going to be moving up. And obviously a Dodger pitcher of Tyler Glasnow's skill level, if healthy, is going to be soaring. Anyone, you guys in on Glasnow at all, or just we've been scarred too much?
What do you think, Mike?
I'm probably off if the price goes up, and probably at the current price too. Honestly, I would need a discount. I'm not gonna count on more than 125, 130 innings from him.
It's like sometimes the universe is trying to tell you something. The guy's name is Glasnow. He is amazing, but
oh yeah, no. On a per inning basis, he's one of the best in the league.
All right, here we go. Getting through the 6th round of this draft. We're referring to the NFBC Online Championship ADP from March 1st to March 6th. If you want to follow along there as well, there have been 10 such drafts. This is the 11th. Let's see. We got Luis Robert Jr., the only draftable player on the White Sox, I think, these days, going off the board there. at the end of the 6th. Yamamoto. Looking over these builds, Lucas, since you're not on the clock here for a bit, and what stands out to you? Any one specific team you want to talk about? Something you like, something you don't like. Maybe we'll go on the positive side. Or Mike, whoever has something off the top of their head.
No, I'm just looking. Looks like Lucas and Team 2 are the only ones without a starter right now. So
Team 2 has Cease.
Oh, see, okay, yep.
He doesn't count. No, I'm kidding.
I like when you mentioned the 4 outfielders earlier, Vlad. I have heard some people say that, like whenever the Guilds did really well in the OC, he took Goldschmidt and Alonso and filled his corner infielder very early, but that's because Goldschmidt fell. I like that Team 2 did that similar approach where they saw the value and they weren't worried that, they filled up their CI too fast. So I think that's something that if you've done your prep, the positions well, the player pool, there's nothing wrong with filling that spot early if you have by far that player ahead.
Yeah, shout out to the Guilds. He won the NFBC OC Online Championship 2 years ago. Big prize there. I actually did the same. I actually did something similar in TGFBI just yesterday. That's a 15-teamer. It's still, NFBC format, industry league. So I got Christian Walker, who, as we know, is getting an MRI on his oblique. And so I got him at like around ADP. But then the constantly falling Josh Naylor felt like 20, 30 spots past his ADP. It was like in the 130s. And I did need to go after other positions and whatnot, but I took Josh Naylor there. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe that works, maybe that doesn't. What it does is it kind of closes me off to some of those later corner infielders that I might like, but maybe that saves me too. Maybe that's a good thing.
Lucas, did you give any thought to any of the big UT only guys when you were?
No, if certain players didn't make it to me, I would have felt like I would have considered it, but getting a premier catcher as far as the batting average and the volume and maybe the power's fluctuated with Yenny or Diaz. But just like you had said, if you want to have 2 strong catchers, you're going to have to take one earlier than you feel excited to do. But you've got that one down. If another one falls to a good value, now you have your 2 catchers that can give you 1,000 plate appearances total.
Yeah. Sometimes when I'm drafting, I think to myself, if there's a round where no one's like really jumping out of me that I'm really excited about, then that's a good round to take either a catcher or a closer.
Yep.
I'm noticing, just kind of looking at the picks off the board. I don't know if there are a lot of FTN subscribers in this draft. I'm seeing, we have our rankings, the value draft, value draft projections, VDPs over at FTN, and we have a little feature there that's basically it's the delta, and what that is it's showing you players that our rankings like more or less than ADP. So it's just ADP minus the VDP rankings. And there are guys that really pop, that we consider overvalued, undervalued. And sometimes you're drafting against people, you can see, folks that are, referring to the rankings or at least considering them, right? A lot of people, most people make their own decisions. But this does not seem like one of those drafts, like, you know what I mean? Like a Willie Adames typically isn't going like in the top 90 in these, for right or wrong. All right. Are you, by the way, drafting live and in front of everyone? Let's wait till you make your pick. But I have a answer after this. Is there any extra nerves as you're doing this live and having to analyze?
Having both of you guys with me makes me feel a lot better because you guys can go back and forth. So that helps a lot. Last year I did a beat league with Eric Cross and it was just us. So there was a little bit more dead time, I would imagine.
Yeah, we're going to try to keep, this is why I babble. So, if you don't want to listen to me, sorry. Well, actually, Mike, you talk more because people are tired of hearing me. Tyler O'Neill scratched from the lineup again. Dude, always something with this guy. Now it was an illness. I don't know what this is now.
Yeah, now this been the week where a lot of the guys that people want to draft are starting to come up with some injuries. Having
Caminero?
to, yeah, including him. Oh. And Lucas has broken the glass on the starting pitchers. Talk to me about Imanaga.
Yeah, so I'm very far behind on my pitching. So I was really looking at a guy who can provide a good whip base, since that's an easy statistic to screw up. As far as the Ks, I'm not excited necessarily, but I'm going to have to attack this in volume, and adding players with higher whips is just going to be irrecoverable. But the Ks, you can volume a little bit.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's I think you can find Ks a little later than you can find good whip pitchers. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and also, I mean, depending also who you're looking at for your other relievers, there could be some help there. You know, there are ways. I think there's still some pitchers out there that can help you. And of course, if you're drafting a team, you know, if in your build, in your scenario, like my opinion is, since you don't have really like a primary like super ace, and you started shopping in this area with the Imanaga, you're going to have more, I guess, probably streaming decisions in season, and you can really maximize it, right? Like based on matchups or you know, things like that. So that's you know, is a positive.
Vlad, do you think the guy who just got drafted, Sasaki, is going to be an helium guy come main event if he keeps pitching the way he did?
At this point, I don't care. Because I have so many shares. I am Sasaki in my neck. Man, is that one guy that I feel that the market has just been way off. And maybe it's like me trying to make fetch happen. I mean, I actually don't care if people draft them, you know, where I'm taking him or not. I'd rather you not, at least in my leagues. But, you know, he just keeps falling off of the little things, like, you know, I mean, off of like, not hearsay and conjecture. I'm not the, you know, attorney here, but the thing that he almost it was considered Tommy John. What was it like last year? The fact that his velo was down a little bit last season, still to like what, 96, you know, and then he pitched. On Tuesday. And to be honest, for me, that start was like it was like a playoff start for me, because it was very important. You know, I just wanted to see him go. The one thing I will tell you about him, I was talking to Nelson, I was telling him this the other day. There's something about him that is different. Like there's a reason why he is who he is. And I could see it on his face. Like when he was first pitching in that start, he was a little off his game. It was literally, this was his moment. It was his first time in a Dodger uniform pitching for real. I could tell he was a little nervous. And at a certain point, I saw this like Kobe, Michael Jordan type thing. And he was just not going to get hit. It was amazing. And he finished off really strongly. And you just see that he's an elite athlete. And I think as long as his arm doesn't, you know, doesn't hurt his shoulder, elbow, I think he'll be great, even if it's 120, 140 innings.
So Lucas, you got your second strong catcher, I see. And,
he was in consideration on the first pick.
Oh, okay.
And I wasn't thrilled to take Imanaga. He's not a guy I'm super high on, but I understand what he can provide. So I felt like if I would have pushed it any more on SP, that would have just been too risky. So I'm pretty happy with Cal Raleigh there, just for the 30 home run potential from the catcher C2 spot. Yep,
and he'll get some time at DH, and you know, you're really strong in batting average, so it's a good match to be able to you know, you can withstand Raleigh's batting average for his power.
Yeah, that's a nice combo there. They complement each other well, I guess, with Yandy Diaz and Cal Raleigh. But
well, and I think Lucas is strong average wise with the rest of his build too.
100%. Like even Tatis, he's rarely hits under what, 270. Mookie could be anywhere from like, you know, 260 to like, you know, 295. Michael Harris is, you know, big batting average plus guy. Yainer. This is good. Yeah. I'm just nervous.
Well, Lucas,
pitching.
If Lucas is like me, he probably was happy he got Raleigh, but then it's like probably eating at him seeing the yellow go off the board after.
Oh yeah, after you're absolutely right. My dream player would have been Pablo Lopez there if he would have come back. I wasn't expecting it, obviously, because I didn't want to be disappointed if he didn't. But I would have felt better about that than Imanaga personally.
Yeah. Lots of pitchings come off the board. There's a question that someone posed. I'm going to wait till these guys get drafted. But another subscriber, Randy Leeson's asking about a couple of pitchers. So we'll wait for maybe one of them to come off the board, and then we can bring them up. Yeah, this is the yellow. A lot of yellow coming off the board. Mike, about a month ago, I think you were on the pod. We were talking to your partner, Mark, and about Mark Vientos. And I don't know. I don't think I've really paid attention to what he's been doing in spring. But what is the reason why he's just been falling? Like now he's like past pick 100. Is it because just the no stolen bases and potentially bad batting average, or?
I think that's part of the reason. I mean, I think he's seen as a 3-category bat, but a lot of power. I don't know. Maybe Alonso coming back pushes him down the lineup another spot. I think maybe also it's I think the market is pushing up Caminero and Westberg a little bit, and so he's falling back a little bit. Other than that, I don't know. I think he's going to make his fantasy managers pretty happy this year, especially if his price keeps falling.
Let me ask you guys, because I'm preparing the last of the tiers series, and this is on the relief pitchers. And maybe we'll talk to Dan Thompson about this on Sunday. But just looking at like guys like John Duran and Andres Munoz, who are just elite arms, but are with managers that, I don't know, they sometimes just they get weird. They do weird things. And just wondering, like, are those guys good? Like, is there any chance that either of them could ever have a 40 save season, or will they always have somebody like, stealing saves from them?
I think if he stays healthy, Munoz can do that. I mean, I think he is an elite arm. Well, both of them are elite arms, but Munoz doesn't have Rocco Baldelli as the manager, for one thing. And I don't think anyone in the Seattle bullpen approaches Griffin Jax. Like, I mean, I think Duran, Jax is pretty damn close to Duran, I think, in skills, if not, right there. And I think there could be some mixing and matching in Minnesota that you maybe won't see in Seattle this year.
Yeah, and you never know. Rocco could just be like, one day, oh, we're just going to go with Jax as the closer. But it's kind of been the setup. I mean, Jax he does the I think a little bit more so on the multi innings and just elite setup guy. But obviously something like that would boost his value up. But I actually love Duran Duran. I actually think he will have a nice bounce back season, and just maybe he'll get a little bit better luck on the save front. Yeah, no,
his stuff is great. I think we'd all love to see him, get every save opportunity like a Class A, but I'm just not sure it happens. But if he's not saving games, he's pitching in a high leverage tied game in the 8th where maybe he gets you some wins. Yep. So he's still going to be extremely valuable and give managers a strikeout advantage and probably great ratios.
So they're off the board. Lucas makes me a little slightly less nervous by taking a second pitcher. I actually drafted Freddie Peralta myself in a DC yesterday. I mean, he did not have the best season last year, and I think that might be influencing his price a little. And plus, he's in this pocket of starting pitchers where the hot new thing is the Spencer Schwellenbachs or the Sasaki's or the Bryce Millers. And then guys like Hunter Green, Aaron Nola, Bybee is considered boring. But
yeah, well, he's still even in a down year, he still registered 200 strikeouts last year, and actually, I think I would have taken him before a number of guys who were drafted shortly before him. So I think it was a good buy.
Yeah, I think with Peralta, the most recent season that he posted was not his best, and he typically goes a lot higher. Like Mike said, he's very consistent. He's gotten past his injury issues. So I view him as a really good pick where he's going for the 200 Ks.
Yeah. A lot of times that, sometimes you're in a draft, especially in the live draft, sometimes like a player really falls. And many times we've had experiences where like, we're the sucker in the room. Like we're the ones that, we end up taking the value, but then something happens. I forgot it was many years ago. It was like Jacoby Ellsbury. It was like, oh, great deal on Ellsbury. And then boom, like out for the year. And of course, this is random things that happen. But then sometimes you're getting great deals on the guys that are just less exciting because people are chasing the helium. They're chasing the fun guys, the Camineros and the Westbergs and, the Schwellenbachs. And listen, those are they can all be huge breakouts. But then like a guy like Freddie Peralta falls, right? Tanner Bybee has been phenomenal for his first 2 full seasons. This is I guess a decent, where is it? He went like 105. Yeah, it's around his ADP in this format, but I've seen him going like in the 120s, 130 sometimes. It's like crazy. Why are guys like this falling?
Yeah, I mean, every now and then there's going to be people who fall in the draft, and I mean, I think it's important to be flexible. And if you like the guy and he's falling and everything checks out, you shouldn't hesitate to grab, change your plans and grab him. But I think you want to be careful about drafting guys you're really not in on just because they're falling.
Absolutely. That's very well said. I think there is a lot of value that you can scoop up, like Vlad said, because people are so attracted like a moth to the light when it comes to upside. But you never want to put a guy in your team that you have any doubts on, in my opinion.
All right, here we go. Moment of truth. Does he go yellow? Yes. Another boring. So that's the beauty of our team is we've got a style of drafter for everybody, right?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I do like I'm trying to get more, a little bit less like this, but I do chase those Tyler O'Neills and the Sasakis, and that I do like a little bit of risk in my coffee. I know Mike and Lucas don't, and they're also very successful players over the years. Nelson likes to chase upside. Dan Thompson is, I think, kind of probably in between somewhere. Todd Whitestone, I think probably a little bit of both. But yeah, we got a drafter for every style.
Yeah, I'm definitely probably in the boring is beautiful camp.
That's why you win. Boring is beautiful.
There's a name that's still available that was tough to pass, but I don't know if I can mention him or not. What do you think, Vlad? If a player hasn't been drafted, is that okay to bring him up?
Well, I'm kind of doing that here with this because Randy had this question, and since one guy is off the board, want to ask you guys' thoughts. Pitcher you would rather have for this season, let's say 5x5 roto, McClanahan or Alcantara, both coming off TJ full recovery.
I picked McClanahan first.
Me too.
I think a little better stuff, maybe more strikeouts per inning. I think he's on a better team, so I think better chance at wins. I mean, they're both in similar positions coming back from Tommy John. They both seem, fully healthy. They had their surgeries a year and a half ago or so, but they're both going to be, kind of innings limited this year. But I will say, for folks who like Alcantara, it was encouraging to see him throw gas in his return. So he looks to be all the way back, and he's a good pitcher. I would lean towards McClanahan.
So what's funny is, Lucas, I know you'll probably say something about this, but I did see something come out from beat writer or something regarding Alcantara, because I did think that they were going to have less kid gloves on him and just kind of let him loose. Or at least that was my thought originally. And then what came out yesterday was that they're really going to monitor him and maybe not let him go the 7, 8, 9. I mean, he's like the complete game master, right? Or who he was for years. They're not going to do that because they are looking to trade him and get something for him. I mean, they're already talking about this. So something to be careful. I still do think he gets 150 plus. I think he'll be fine, healthy, great. And if he does get to some contender earlier than later, that'll help his wins too. So there's a little like back end boost. But I'm with you, McClanahan, if I had to choose between the two.
So that player that I was alluding to was Simeon. He fell very far in this draft. I already had a second baseman. I think he separates, the wheat from the chaff a lot in the 12-teamer with his volume that I think is not going to drop as much as his manager wants. I mean, it's easy for the manager to say, I want to give Simeon more days off until they have, 2-3 guys go to the injured list, and he's going to be putting in Ezekiel Duran for Simeon. So I think that Iron Man's going to continue to do what he does and post 100 runs.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there had been talk about the Rangers, getting some rest days here and there, and then like maybe not leading off, but like having more rest days is probably good for him anyways. And if you're planning on having Evan Carter lead off, it's probably not going to happen because, like, listen, the guy could be great, and especially against right-handed pitching, but he's always got something going on. Well, it's not just always. I mean, unfortunately, the guy's got like a chronic back issue, so it's going to have to be Simeon. All right.
Yeah, it's tough time sometimes also to know how much weight to put in those things. Your Dodgers, Vlad. With Freddie Freeman, is he really going to sit on the bench a day game after a night game, and is that going to happen once or twice, or really, for 3 months? I'm skeptical about that, and I'm skeptical that Alcantara will be very happy being yanked in the 5th inning when he's pitching well.
Mm-hmm.
This brings up a good point as far as like what Mike, you just wrote about this in an article about like transitioning and from the sort of like the non-fab leagues to the fab leagues, and also helium and spring training stuff. But that's really important, is not taking sometimes what you read for face value. And those of us that have been playing for many years and doing this and like really paying attention in spring. I've never paid attention this much in spring, like this year, or like I am this year. But you're also kind of learning what's real or what's not. And even noticing like, for example, Boston doesn't seem like for a while there, like didn't know what direction they're going with or what they even want to do. They seem very confused, but like, kind of cutting through that noise and figuring out like what's real and what is just sometimes really just like common sense in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we as fantasy baseball addicts, we've been drafting for months and months. And for most of that time, the news was really limited, just an occasional trade and just free agent signings. But the rest was kind of speculation, innuendo, and not actionable. And now, the players are in camp, spring training games have started, and now there's news overload. And I think, people really have to figure out, how much time they're going to devote to tracking all that stuff. What's the best sources of information to follow that they rely upon, and what's important and what really isn't. And my recent article tried to get into that a little bit.
We are here. This is the FTN Beat Lucas Biery NFBC Online Championship. Let's say OC, just the more acronyms, the better. Let's keep those coming. And I'm Vlad Sedler. I'm with Mike Mager and Lucas Biery, 2 former NFBC overall champions. And Lucas is drafting today from the 9 spot. He had been scaring his colleagues with not taking pitchers, but now starting to make us feel a little better. Because look, you actually, the offense is strong. And Sonny Gray is your 4, so you're kind of in a good spot. I could sleep at night.
I feel a lot better with, as you said, he's my 4, Castillo's the 3, rather than hearing Imanaga's the 1. That's making me feel like I screwed up this contest. So, that's the thing. You want to have that hitter heavy build in the 12 team, but balance is key. Maybe I regret it a little bit, but only time will tell, I suppose.
Well, your SP1 is 1 slot, and so maybe you're behind some other teams with your SP1, but you're trending to be better than a lot of teams with your 3 and 4, and you can make up a little weakness at top with depth. At least that's what it seems like you're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, what it comes down to is if you're able to get so what you did there is outside of Imanaga. And I guess Gray is fine too, but you drafted 2 guys that aren't really helium players, starting pitchers, but have been so consistent and so great over the last years and get a lot of strikeouts and pitch in good parks, or at least Castillo does, pitches in the best pitcher's park in the world. And just any bit of improvement on last year and bounce back. And if like Sonny stays healthy or maybe even gets out of St. Louis, because I don't know, I saw some weird interview with him where like he just didn't know kind of what to say. It was when spring training came out. So just, weird vibes in St. Louis. Jordan Walker stepping on sprinklers and stuff. But it's a really good, solid foursome. These guys have been great for a long time.
Yeah, I heard Jeff Erickson mention that video, and then I read that you wrote about it too. I need to look up that video because I've loaded up a little bit with Sonny. But, as much as baseball is a team sport, these guys know that they want to get their numbers. And, it's a 1v1 competition, batter versus hitter. Even though I'd love the team aspect of it, just because I like that team mindset. But, yeah, I need to check that video out.
All right, are you going to SB5? Are you going to RP2? Or are you going with a hitter here?
Guys, I made a tough decision because I really wanted to have Jared Jones come back to me.
Oh.
But I felt like Sonny Gray I didn't want to sacrifice. So that's one of these things, when you have two guys that you love, you're probably going to have to kiss one goodbye in a tough room like this. So it's part of it.
Yeah, that is a tough one. Sometimes that's actually one of the beautiful things about drafts, especially if you're doing a lot of snake drafts, is it really kind of builds your analytical skills because you're planning ahead, right? And especially if you're trying to keep up with a spreadsheet or something, but you're trying to stay one step ahead in your competition, especially if you're closer to the turns. You're almost playing this game of chicken sometimes. It's like, okay, well, if I do this player first, then I can probably still get both of the guys I wanted. And then that's just so much fun, man. I don't know what to say. Drafting, right now doing this with you guys, I'm in my greatest self. This is my absolute element, drafting fantasy baseball in March, nothing's better.
Yeah, no, I agree. Drafting is great for folks who are on the fence. Live drafting is even better. Encourage folks to, if there's any way they can pull it off, to attend the NFBC live events. And yeah, you touch upon one of the tough things about snake drafts is in a tough room. Sometimes you might want a couple of guys, and they're not coming back to you. It forces you to make some very tough decisions. Lucas, talk to us about Tovar.
Yeah, Tovar had fell there, and I just saw the note that he had left the game with the triceps, so I had some serious hesitation. But my thought is in a contest like this, I actually have the ability to stream him at home versus on the road in a 12 team. So that way you'd be able to avoid some of the bad batting average outcomes. And also he is that potential good batting average guy with some pops. So I like him as far as the full-time at-bats, and the hitters dried up at this point. There's going to be very few hitters this round and next round that I feel excited about, but I felt like Tovar checked off some good boxes.
Yeah, a lot of the fun guys, some of the helium outfielders, a lot of those guys are gone. For example, Mike Trout has really risen up. I mean, obviously, we all cross our fingers. We hope he makes it through the season. That's what we want, especially if we draft him. Christian Yelich, and with the back injury, always a concern. Dylan Cruz cruising around the bases, stealing them, all of them. 30 stolen base upside. He's kind of a fun guy. Jason Dominguez, obviously, Mike is as a Yankee fan and fantasy analyst, and me as a not Yankee fan but a big Dominguez fan. By the way, how much is this is important to me to ask you live on air here. Jason Dominguez is butchering in the outfield. How much does that impact? Or is it just is he having just a couple of bad days here, or is he just a butcher, and how would that impact him?
No, he's really bad. I go back to, the Yankees' most important games last year, including the playoffs. Boone was putting Verdugo out there over Dominguez, and that's kind of telling how his defense is viewed. Right. I understand he's a center fielder in the minors, and so he's kind of playing out of position, and they have Bellinger in center. Although, I can't think of too many players that have been really bad corner infielders who were somehow better in center. It's usually the other way around. So I'm not sure what they're going to do, but I do think the playing time is safe. They got to give this guy some run. And the bat plays, and, Stanton is hurt now. So the DH slot is now open, more so than it ever was. If he's really bad, they can, give him some days at DH. But right now they need him, and he's going to play. But yeah, if they were a little more crowded and if Stanton hadn't gotten hurt, I'd be a little nervous.
If you had a right now, Mike, you know what? I do look at spring box scores. I haven't really paid attention. Maybe I should have because it's a big deal for me, but I haven't been looking to see who they've been leading off with. And I know they've done some split squad games, but if you were to have to guess now who is the opening day leadoff hitter, we know it's not going to be DJ LeMahieu, but would you say it's Anthony Volpe, who's having a phenomenal spring, hitting the ball harder, barreling it more, high max exit velocities? Anthony Volpe, Jason Dominguez, Jazz Chisholm, or other?
It's tough to say. I don't think it's going to be Volpe. He hasn't demonstrated the on-base skills with the walks and a higher average to justify doing that. I'll give you a name that I have trouble seeing, but Roster Resource is now projecting Austin Wells, catcher, as the Yankees leadoff batter. I don't know about that. I mean, I think they should be giving Dominguez a chance in the beginning of the season to see what they have. I mean, he's an explosive bat. I would prefer him, but the Yankees don't have a great, on base guy to hit in front of like Judge and Bellinger and Goldschmidt.
I'm sorry.
The thing about Wells, as far as him not being a traditional leadoff guy, is in his first minor league campaign, he had a 390 OBP, his first professional year. Then he followed it up with a 385 OBP. So, I mean, he does have that penchant to walk. He hasn't shown it that much in the majors like he did in the minors, but I like that role for him if it can stick for that fantasy value.
Yeah, no, if it sticks. I mean, he did have a double-digit walk rate last year, but went with a 229 average. So, and I think of it more as a power hitter. And you also, ideally, I think you'd love to have a little speed on the bases from your leadoff batter, which you don't get there. So I don't know, but beggars can't be choosers, and I'm not sure who they have to lead off. But
I know a guy.
Dominguez.
I know, yeah, that's a guy.
Yeah,
that's a high walk rate guy who has speed. Yeah. His name is Jason Dominguez. The Austin Wells thing, Jason R. Martinez of Roster Resource is not losing his mind. This comes from the fact that Austin Wells has been leading off at least in the last game, and he got a hit, ribby run. But Austin Wells, yeah, I mean, you get the lefty, righty, lefty. If you go Wells, Judge, Bellinger, Goldie, Jazz, it could kind of work. You got a very heavy righty, lefty, righty lineup. And then also the Austin Wells' playing time has a chance to really spike because last year it was kind of a little bit more of a platoon with him and Jose Trevino. It was like a true like lefty, righty platoon. So Wells would sit often. But when he was playing, it was like his cleanup sometimes. So they think highly of him. This year, they've got Alex Jackson, at least still trying to make the team. Very bad offensive catcher, but he's in the mix. And then Ben Rice can play a little catcher. Like the fact that DJ LeMahieu is hurt right now, Ben Rice is probably going to be, cracking that lineup. And as DH, he can play first. He could play third. He could play, I don't know if he plays third. He did a little. And then he can also catch. So, yeah,
I think the folks who got a lot of late shares of Ben Rice, and unfortunately I'm not one of them, may make out really well this year. I think they want to get his bat into the lineup. But maybe I'm just kind of traditional, old-fashioned, but I'd love to see a guy with speed like Dominguez in front of Judge and force the other team to throw more fastballs to Judge or let Dominguez run.
So what we really need is we need to see Dominguez at the top of the lineup a couple of times. In spring, I think that's going to be a thing because if you keep seeing Wells there, it's kind of a telling sign, and that will also have a huge helium on him. So a guy that's going around 200 ADP right now, Austin Wells will easily pop up into the Tyler Stevenson, Francisco Alvarez, maybe even higher than that, because I think we all know what he's capable of. And, if he's hitting in front of Judge, that's an incredibly valuable spot. All right, Lucas on the clock, pick 9, second closer, another outfielder. a nice starting pitcher, Ryan Pepio, former Dodger.
Got your SP5.
Those are the two pitchers that I was looking at. I was looking at Fairbanks, just because I felt like he was the last guy with a job that I felt pretty good about. I mean, there's other players with a job that I feel fine with, but yeah, I went with Pepio.
Mike, talk about your worries, if any, with Tampa, and you know that park well, the Steinbrenner Park. Is that what it's called, Steinbrenner Park?
I think it's Field, but yeah.
Field.
So
Tampa.
I mean, basically, due to the hurricane damage, the Rays are playing their home games in the Yankees minor league park down in Tampa, and because it's the Yankees minor league park, they designed it to match Yankee Stadium, so it's the same dimensions. So it's going to play up for left-handed bats. It's got the short right field porch, and obviously it's warmer, it's hotter. The ball's going to fly even more than Yankee Stadium, so it should be even more hitter-friendly than Yankee Stadium. So I think it impacts Rays hitters, including obviously all the lefties, plus those righties that can go to the opposite field with some power, like a Caminero, for instance. And it also has some impact on their pitchers. It's going to be a little tougher ballpark for their pitchers. The other thing to bear in mind, I think, is because of the heat, MLB has adopted a very unusual schedule for Tampa, where the Rays are going to play a lot of home games early in the season and late in the season, and be on the road much more than usual in the middle of the season when the games are, when it's even hotter down in Florida. So you could look for some Rays hitters to get off to a very hot start, potentially, but there are some concerns about the increased travel in the middle of the season and what impact that might have. I've also heard some concerns, playing outside in Florida in the summer, whenever they have their home games, they may have some more rain outs or rain delays, which could curtail some starters' outings. So could have a lot of impacts on different Rays players.
All right.
Mike, you had mentioned the schedule there for the Rays, and you had mentioned the front-loaded home schedule.
Yep.
I thought you were going to mention what time of day they were going to play. Do you happen to know when that'll be?
No, I think I'm trying to remember. I think they may be starting the games a little later, trying to avoid kind of the day rain, trying to minimize the likelihood of rain. I think it was later, but I'm not sure. They did change the times for a lot of the home games. You're right. I just don't recall in what direction.
That's a solid number 5, though, Ryan Pepio. I think there's if they hadn't moved, if what happened, the unfortunate incident didn't occur, these guys were playing in their home park. These pitchers would all be going higher, all these starting pitchers, because there's a lot to like with Ryan Pepio and the rest of the guys who you'll be drafted soon. But yeah, he's another guy that wouldn't be surprised if you see him kind of creep up into the top 25 overall starting pitchers. Good control, upside with the strikeout, so he's really, really solid there. Quick note on the Austin Wells thing, because the Yankees did play this morning. Wells did lead off again. We're really into this now. He went 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. So, even though I think we shouldn't, as fantasy people, shouldn't over analyze all this stuff. We know that the management and the coaches are right. So if Wells is just having a blistering spring as the leadoff guy, then listen, chances are against all righties, he's going to be the leadoff guy. I think that's very possible. But these things are so fluid throughout the course of the season. Like literally anything can happen during the season, and you might see 4 different leadoff guys for the Yankees all year. All right, Christopher Sanchez. Now we're cooking. Now you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 solid starting pitchers, and it's a type of setup. And you really didn't work this beautifully. You did have me nervous at first. You did it in a way where, I mean, honestly, any of these guys could be your SP1.
Well,
That's
you
a
make
good
me
thing.
feel a little bit better. So, yeah, that Imanaga SP1 was scarring me pretty bad there. But, I'll tell you one regret that I have somewhat is filling catcher 2 early. There was an absolute bargain for Tyler Stevenson in round 14 to get a full-time solid average catcher with some pop in the best home run park. Team 11, Dov, incredible buy there. And Logan O'Hoppe in round 12 at the very end of round 12, I thought was a good buy too. They're a developmental team with the Angels. They're going to be looking towards the future. So I think he's going to get plenty of at-bats.
All right. Let's, as we turn here in a while until Lucas's next pick, let's just take a quick look at these teams and maybe just like an idea of ones that we like, ones that we're not a fan of.
Team 1 has done really well. I mean, obviously you get a chance to start out with the number 1 player, but I just think as far as the way that they've filled in the gaps, I think they've done a phenomenal job.
We have a person has come to the forefront. Longtime high stakes player Dusty Wagner he said, Lucas, good snipe, and that's because he is team 8, and he says we can identify him. So now, if you're in a draft with Dusty, you know who he likes now. Or Dusty could just be doing this. This would be Dusty to throw us all off by having one draft of players he doesn't like, and then make us all pick. So, but that's obviously a pretty solid team, I think, as well for him.
There's multiple players that their price has changed just with some news today. I think we get a report tomorrow that Junior Caminero is feeling healthy. Dusty got a steal there with him there in the 7th round potentially. And there's still a big pitcher that's on the board, a frontline pitcher, and he's well past his max, Grayson Rodriguez. He's a guy I looked at a little bit going in for further testing, so that could be a big profit pick. But as I said before, we got kicked off, I do want to have that more conservative approach where I don't want to just YOLO too much with my picks.
All right, we're in the boring second baseman range with speed, But Bryce Terang, Andres Jimenez, Bryson Stott report in Toronto that George Springer is more likely going to be the 4-hitter. They want to have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hitting 2nd, which I think is great. Anthony Santander 3rd, and the leadoff guy could rotate. Like it could be Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette could be the leadoff or the cleanup. George Springer could hit cleanup if Bichette's leading off. I'm trying to think who else they have there in the mix. I don't, hope it's not guys like
Santander.
Oh, they want him to hit 3rd.
Oh,
so like hopefully it's not like Will Wagner or Nathan Lukes or whoever. But yeah, that's interesting. But Andres Jimenez, he's not a big walks guy, right? But
no.
Could he lead off or not?
He's a decent average, but he's not a big walk guy. But he'll definitely put pressure on the pitchers when he gets on base with his speed.
It's true.
This does feel like a Bichette thing. So in today's lineup, it was. So we're recording on Thursday, March 6th. So Bo Bichette led off. They played the Red Sox. It was Bichette lead off. He went 3 for 4, running a ribby. Guerrero 2nd, Santander 3rd, Springer 4th, Jimenez 5th, and then Alejandro Kirk with a bomb hit 6th. Ernie Clement hit 7th. He hit a bomb, and Davis Schneider hit a bomb as well. So now I'm curious who that pitcher was. Who gave up all those bombs? Cooper Criswell. All right, carry on.
Bo Bichette is definitely having a strong spring, possibly addressing concerns people had with his season last year.
That's another sneaky helium guy. There would be almost no way unless something bad happens, and we don't root for that, obviously. But he's most likely going to be another guy that cracks into the top 100. All right. I wanted to mention Team 11, and that's Robert, who we talked about. I like his starting pitchers. It's really high upside, obviously, and guys that throw absolute gas. If this was like a miles per hour or velocity league, he'd definitely be winning. But like Paul Skeens with Roki Sasaki, Sandy Alcantara, and Jared Jones is a really nice 4. And he'll want to get some starting pitchers. By the way, Robert took the deal. He is somebody I've kind of, seen on the Twitter space for a long time. but I had a really quick deal where if you subscribe to FTN within that 24-hour period for baseball, you enter this league, and if he finishes higher than Lucas in the standings, I'm going to buy an OC team for them, give credit, pay NFBC the $350 to get the credit. Robert took that. So just FYI, Lucas, that's the person you got to beat. Save me money.
Well,
No
that was an exciting thing that I saw come across the text there whenever you sent that to me. So that was really cool and interactive. I mean, I had no idea you're going to do that, and that's just
I didn't either.
one of the perks of being on the team here and being able to interact with us for 162 all season. That's the fun of the Discord. You never know when Mike's going to give you a 2,000 word soliloquy on your team when you ask him about your 10 team keeper decision. So that's the benefit. Yeah.
Discord's fun. We got a few channels there. And yeah, people starting to pop in a little bit more now. It's year round, but obviously now is kind of a little bit more of the fun time. And yes, if you do ask Mike a question in any of the chats, you will get more than you asked for. It's like, honestly, I do have, who was it? I had two people recently mention that like the FTN subscription is alone worth it just for access to Mike Mager's brain.
Oh, wow. Nice. Appreciate that.
All right. Isaac Paredes, new Houston number 2 hitter. As far as we know, they're probably between Altuve and Yordan Alvarez. That's a good spot. Do you have a projected home runs for him this season?
I think the 25 home run mark is very attainable. The batting average is my biggest question. As far as the Crawford boxes, I think he'll be able to put the balls in there pretty regularly. I just have some concern, you're getting a sub 240 average. But like you said, the volume of the 2 spot, I felt like it was worth it.
All right, here we go. Turning the corner, another pick for Lucas.
Kenley was definitely one that I had queued up, but Dusty prevented that. So yeah.
So you don't have a second closer. Are you looking at one now here, or are you going to wait more?
Kenley, I felt like if he would have fallen, would have fit that bill really well, just because he has that job security. And I think he did better than a lot of people realized last year with his 106 whip. But, I do like to follow bullpens, so I can leverage that by loading up everything else, taking some shots later on in the draft, maybe going 8-1 for a little while. You don't want to do that too long with 8 SPs and 1 reliever, with Diaz being my, horseman there. But, yeah, that's kind of the cool thing about the OC is you can decide where you want your weakness to be.
You got some Boston relievers on the board. We don't really know. I mean, Liam Hendricks is having a good camp and firing away, so he looks good. You've got, Aroldis Chapman. I think you kind of know what you're going to get out of him. There are going to be some big blowups there. Garrett Whitlock, by the way, I don't think he'll get a chance to close, but I think he could be very capable. But they can use him as a fireman role, like multi-inning relief there, and. Just letting you know that I did notice this probably means nothing because they do say that the Philly competition is wide open. And obviously Jordan Romano has been a tremendous closer in the past. And this probably means nothing, but Orion Kirkering came on the inning after Romano in today's spring game. Means nothing, right, Mike? No, I'm wondering. I'm asking a serious question.
Sometimes it doesn't mean anything. And other times it might. I would focus more on patterns than a single game.
Yeah.
But I think also as we get into, especially next week, the season's getting closer. I think rather than, I think early in spring training, managers are, they're giving guys a lot of rest. They're rotating things. People are trying new things and stuff like that. But as the season gets closer, you'll start seeing, the starters playing more. You'll see, managers kind of gravitating towards the starting lineups and the bullpen order that they want to employ. So, I think it might be relevant now, but if it continues over the next week or so, then I would really start putting weight into it. Nice pick, Lucas.
I knew you'd like it, Mike.
Yeah, there was other needs that I needed to address, and he's my 3rd shortstop on the roster with Betts included. But I don't want to mess with these waiver wire shortstops, especially in a 12-team league, because I get that you can stream certain things, but sometimes the prevention of getting in certain pools is not a bad thing, to not have to worry about dealing with waiver wire shortstops if I were to suffer a blow to, multiple of my guys.
What important?
I just thought he represented really nice value there. I think a lot of times Swanson is kind of lumped together with Pena and Wynn as kind of like a mini tier, and you managed to get Swanson, like 4 rounds after Wynn and a couple rounds after Pena. So
Yandy was the other dude I was looking at, since I've yet to fill first base. But like you had said, Mike, I thought that Swanson was just a better bang for your buck. And I do want to have a certain threshold at each position, but I felt like with Swanson, to get that full-time just Iron Man guy, it was good.
One thing I'll point out on these all NFBC contests is that the 2 games that are in Tokyo, the Dodgers and the Cubs, a week before the season starts, those are all free look games, meaning you can decide whether you want to start them after, because lineups don't lock until the opening day, the 27th, before games get started. And so there could be some strategery, if you will, in the contest like this, where if you do want to, I don't really know, like, I don't want to influence anything here in the draft, but there are some Cubs and Dodgers pitchers or hitters that maybe could be used, to see if maybe one of them sneaks a win or something, and you don't have to decide until after those games happen. The other side of that coin is ADP is going to change massively after those games. So whatever those, I think those games are on the 20th and 21st. Between the 21st and 27th, there will be a majority of NFBC drafts taking place, including lots of main events, high stakes auctions of sorts. And, really there could be lots of overreaction, underreaction. If Freddie Freeman hits 3 home runs in those 2 game series, is he now a first rounder, right? Or, Mookie Betts goes 0 for 9 and maybe day to day with an ankle. Is he now a 3rd rounder? So like all these things, it's a whole nother crazy element of it all. We got a question here. Adam, do you pay more or less attention to average in these OCs versus the 15s? He typically doesn't worry as much as he tends to stream the utility spot with the hot bat. Is he wrong with this thinking?
Vlad, for me, with the average in the OCs, I focus more on it because you can be more picky. In a 15-teamer, sometimes you have to just kind of take what falls a little bit. But in an OC, you basically have to have as few weaknesses as possible. So I think protecting your batting average is crucial, but that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I generally agree with that. And the other thing I'll add is I think the threshold is higher in a 12-teamer. So you need a better average in a 12-teamer, and you can't lose sight of that.
And these are things that we can track along the way as we draft. And some people might do that in a draft software. They might do it in a spreadsheet they made. They may, eyeball it or paper and pen. But either way, it's a good thing to track, because if you did, for whatever reason, you kind of lost your flow, and you started off with an Ellie De La Cruz, who may not be a bad average guy, but could hit 235, right? And then if you add a Kyle Schwarber there in a moment of weakness, you now have a batting average problem that you have to, actively address. And so tracking that in some regard, I think, is very, very, very wise. Here we go. Lucas, pick 17. We're going to take everyone through the end of the 18th round. We've all got some other work and things we got to get done. So through the end of 18 round, pick 205 is where we will call it. But boom, Tommy Edman is crushing this spring. And he just, by the way, hit a home run.
He did?
Not too long ago.
Do I get anything for that, or no? I'm just kidding. That's the funny thing, certain guys, they just fly up or go down based on, 8 to 10 at bats, and it's just crazy to think that we do 6 months worth of off-season prep and things like that will still always affect things.
Oh yeah, it's amazing how much if some random reliever gets a win in those free look games, they shoot up, and all of a sudden they go from being undraftable to being like a 25th rounder in big leagues. and then they're cut on Sunday. But
Uh-huh. And so you have him. I mean, he's probably going to get second base eligibility at some point. And I mean, something you don't really need. You're kind of really covered in the corner. So it sounds like you're going to be playing Edmund mostly in the outfield because you got Ketel Marte hitting second base. You've got a lot of depth on shortstop with 3 guys, and so Edmund sounds like. And actually, that's your first outfielder in quite a while since Michael Harris in the 4th.
Yeah, and like you said, he filled that outfield need, but he also. I thought he fell a lot, so I thought it was a good bargain. So, yeah, it worked out in a lot of different ways. And I checked, and I was short on speed. I need to add him into the system and see where I'm at. But before him, I was averaging 11 steals per player, which is lower than I need. Let's see what Edmund brings that total up to. That brings it up to 12. So, not a lot, but it helped a little bit.
And there are other speed guys. I mean, you get 20 to 25 from Tatis, anywhere like 10 to 20 from Mookie, depending. Harris is probably, the healthy season could be a 20 to 30 guy, honestly. And then, these guys here in the middle don't really steal bases, maybe 5-10 out of Tovar, and the few out of Swanson. And then, I mean, sky's the limit really for Edmund. It could be another, he's stolen 30 plus in the past. He can do it again.
Like you said, I was hoping that either Betts or Edmund can get second just to give me another backup behind Ketel Marte. There's loads of second basemen out there that are interesting, but it never hurts to just have that depth if you wanted to have a pitching heavy bench or be able to make more swaps to maximize at-bats Monday through Thursday or what have you.
All right, here we go. The last pick here for Lucas in the stream, and then we will let him finish the draft off by himself with Dusty, Robert, and everyone else.
There we go. Not very exciting, but hopefully a useful player.
You got an outfielder. You got a guy that, I mean, if everything's fine health-wise, then possible, 5-hitter and a great team, great offense. And I had to keep myself in a recent article from going, it is pronounced Nemo, I know, but I know he was dealing with knee issues, so Brendan Nemo. But, I'd say we won't go there, but I guess I just did. All right. Let's wrap up here. Let's, looking through the rosters here, anything that stands out, any strategy, any tips that you guys have, kind of like a last call here for everyone watching before we head out.
Looks like a pretty straightforward draft. Yeah, I mean, I think some guys fell a little farther than I thought, but you're definitely seeing a lot of drafting based on recent news. I think a lot of the guys who were nicked up or worse fell. I think some of the guys who maybe are having hot springs are creeping up a little bit. I think that's just a sign of things to come.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mike. Like, for example, Grayson Rodriguez fell really far, way past his max for the last 6 OCs. So, yeah, I mean, that might be nothing. I mean, my thought whenever I first saw that news was, listen, this guy's already made it into the big leagues, probably low adrenaline, you can't recreate a real major league situation. So if a guy has low velocity in one game, it doesn't worry me too badly. Now, if it's low velocity for the entire spring training and they're not building it very well, then that's a scary sign. We saw that with Chris Bassett recently in previous years. So, yeah, reacting to the recent stuff, like you said, Mike, is paramount.
Yeah, and there was even beyond the the velo dip, there was a little blurb today that he was dealing with right tricep soreness and wanted to go testing, and so that it definitely puts you on under the gun there when you want to draft a guy, he's falling, and at what point is it an acceptable risk? Because at this point we don't know. It could be nothing. I mean, he could be starting. He could make another 1 or 2 spring training starts and be perfectly fine for the regular season, or this could be, something serious that causes them to miss time. You just, at this point, you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was enough to scare me off, but it could be nothing like you said. So it's just one of the things where you've got to keep your head on a swivel at all times during these drafts.
And every day creates a new market. Everyone's going to be changing. It's going to be a lot of fluctuation based on the news. Guys, this was awesome. I do want people to know that we are doing a free baseball subscription giveaway. So if you go to ftnfantasy.com/free baseball, I believe the deadline is tomorrow, and we'll announce the winner tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. So go over there, ftnfantasy.com/free baseball, and go for a shot for a free subscription. Join us. We will help you crush it. We will be back tomorrow, 11 p.m. Eastern here on YouTube. It will be me for the Beat Jason Anthony League. Nelson Sousa will be joining us, and then we'll do another one on Sunday. So Mike Mager and for Lucas Biery, thank you guys so much. Lucas, crush the rest of your draft, and we'll talk to you all next time.
Good luck.